Welcome to Roadie Friday. I'm Allie Adams. I'm here with Sam Scarce, the one and only. Hi, Sam. How are you?
Doing good. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You are a force. You've worked with some of the top bands in the industry, and you're a really cool person, and I consider a friend. So I'm super stoked that we're doing this. And you have worked in this scene for a long time, but you kind of disappeared for a while. And then you came back and you blew up immediately. And just like, can you kind of take me through that? Through those different kind of periods in your life? Because I just think it was really cool to see you come back with like a boom. Like you came back and it was like, oh, everyone wants to work with Sam.
Yeah, I kind of just grew up. Like once I graduated high school, I joined a band and I was a drummer at one point, and I ended up moving to Hollywood to go to the Musicians Institute, and I wanted to learn the business. And through that point, there's no lack of talent in bands, but unfortunately, keeping the band together is actually probably the hardest part. And my band members kind of flaked off, and then that's where I met my friend Dean a long time ago in like 2006, who's now the manager of Revolution. And we just kind of hung out with each other. We were like the two kids who smoked pot and listened to reggae music in Hollywood. And through that, we got to kind of grow up together. And he kind of taught me the ropes. Long story short, I moved back home. He went on, did his own thing. And then at that point, it was like courage to grow, bright side of life of the Revolution career. And they were jumping and he needed help. So I kind of stepped in sort of like a day-to-day, I wouldn't call it day-to-day, but more of like a marketing assistant role.
Yeah.
And through that, I got to learn and meet all of the bands that are kind of at the top of the genre today as they were growing. And from there, I made a switch to management and I got to do that. I got to be in the scene for a while. I started managing bands on my own, but unfortunately, I had a couple health issues. My kidneys failed, and I ended up going on dialysis, which was a pretty insane thing to go to as a young man. And I went away for a while and I had to focus on my health. I was still going to shows and keeping myself, you know, plugged in. However, I wasn't a part of any kind of business dealings or really involved. And then one day I got a miraculous kidney transplant and I started working a 9 to 5. And as I was building my life together, I guess coming to grips with my own mortality made me realize that that 9 to 5 life wasn't for me and I had to kind of go for it. And then I started picking up a camera. I started getting reps, at a church. I started getting good at
Okay.
it.
Stop there. Stop there. Why did you pick up a camera? Like what drove you? Nothing, but you had no experience prior with the camera and you just, how did that, like, what was that moment where you either bought a camera and decided how to use it or like, what did that look like?
I always had like, it was pretty crazy when I was going to all these shows back then. I had like this little flip camera back in the day. And it was like one of the first cameras that didn't completely distort the bass of music. So I always had all these memories and I was traveling and being in all these cool rooms and concerts and festivals on the management side. I was like, why am I not capturing any of this for memory's sake? And then when I got sick, you know, it kind of hit me a little bit more. I wanted to remember these moments. And I think one beautiful thing as photographers, videographers, or whatever, we have this kind of unique ability to slow down time in a weird kind of way. And I think subconsciously that became my why. When I was managing, I'd always hire photographers or there'd be press photographers, and turnaround time was just difficult. So I was like, why can't I do this myself?
So you've
So I
always kind of had the photographer's eye in your mind. Like you've always kind of were thinking like this is something that should be captured. And then so finally you took the jump and you're like, I'm gonna be the one to capture it.
Yeah, and little joke here, I'm half Japanese, so I like to think I'm genetically predisposed to have a good eye.
I think you have a great eye. I think you capture things. I think your ability, music is it's a hard thing to capture. The subject is not focused on the camera like it is in fashion, like it is in film, right? You're a fly on the wall for the most part. And I think you do a really great job of capturing emotion and equal parts of staying out of the way, but also interacting with the subject. All these artists, they know you personally. So they're acknowledging you when you're taking their picture or taking their video. And that adds an element that a lot of photographers, I think, don't think about. A lot of photographers stay on the fringe and stay as a fly on the wall. And that, I think that's fine. But I think in music, it's so important to have that personal connection with the artist and with your subject, because that's ultimately that's what people want to see. Sure. Okay. Live music, like, yes, it's great. Like, they want to see it. They want to see the interactions that are happening, those like small moments that are so special. And I think, yeah, you do a really great job of capturing that and kind of teasing that out of the artist too, like, because you have that personal relationship, they're much more comfortable with saying things, doing things, looking at the camera, hamming it up for you. And I think you really get a perspective that not a lot of photographers, videographers can capture.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It's something I pride myself on, and it's also just a testament to time and networking and building relationships. I think talent can take you so far. I think networking can take you so far, but like once you get your foot in the door, how do you stay there?
Yeah.
And I've been really fortunate enough to like become friends with a lot of these musicians. And something I like to say is that like every good thing I have in my life has come from a posture of service. And I'm not here trying to be in the band. I'm not trying to be cool. I'm not trying to be noticed at all. It's one of those things where I'm just a vessel to like take the night's events and make someone at home or someone who was there feel like they were there, or if
Yeah.
someone was in the front row, make them feel like they were in backstage, or someone who was in the nosebleeds in the lawn, make them feel like they're against the rail. And I think that's really what I try to do.
I think you succeed at it exceedingly well. But going back to your story, you said that you got your start kind of in the church. So let's go back to that.
Yeah, and obviously this doesn't have to be a sermon or a testimony of any means, but like what I mean by that, it's just like I think a lot of young photographers or people who are trying to get reps or get started, they kind of can get disheartening from trying to hit up a band or get cold DM or talk to a publication. It's kind of tough when, local churches definitely have a need and a desire on like kind of a volunteer basis, of course, to kind of get their message and their word out. So it's a good place where you can find community, where you can get like it's almost like a free little college.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people that are out on the road, whether it be sound, production, lighting, photography, videography, a lot of people got their start in the church because it's a real good place to get their reps. But obviously, I think the main aspect of that is not necessarily the church aspect of it, but finding a community of people who can encourage you, push you along, and you're also getting your reps in what you want to do.
I never even thought about that, but you're so 100% right. I grew up in the church too. It's your first it's your first live show at,
It really,
I
and
mean,
it's really
if you think about it on a basic level,
it's kind of tamed down. I mean, like you have to deal with changing lighting, you have to deal with moving subjects, and it's a good little intro into it. And then you have for other types of photography, you have your pastor or whatever standing there, so you can kind of get those portrait shots as well. So it kind of gives you this like dynamic place to easily transition into a concert space.
Yeah, and hone your skills because it's kind of a low risk situation, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not demanding to get paid for anything. I'm learning, but at the same time, there's a lot more grace. So, like, you don't feel that pressure of if you deliver some shit product, oh well,
Yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily translate when people are paying you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just like, I love your come up. I love your story. I think it's really amazing. And I just think you've really carved a niche out for yourself. And you are a beautiful example of putting your mind to something and working really fucking hard to achieve it. And yeah, I just love to see it as your friend watching it from the outside, like looking and seeing everything you're doing. It's amazing to see. And switching gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you about Catastro, because I know that you were friends with the guys. I know you were friends with Andy. I know you worked with them extensively prior to, Andy's tragic death. And I know you've been a big part of the music coming out of all of this, the new album Until the End of Time, which is slated to drop October 4th, which is incredible. First of all, what was it like working with Andy? And number two, what was it like working with the guys after he passed? Like it was very emotional. And I just, am curious what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to keep it together while talking about it. It's still, 2 years later, it's still very difficult to like kind of talk about and stuff. But Andy was the best to ever do it. Like
Yeah.
he had, it's unfortunate. He was such a one of a kind human being. His energy, his commitment to his craft, and once again, you were talking about my story and how I grew. I've known those guys since they had to leave the venue because they weren't young enough to be there. So like I've been a small part of their lives for a very long time. And through that, I've got to watch their growth. It was just amazing to watch them find their sound, find their look, and what they had to do. As far as Andy goes, I mean, he was one of the most lovable guys you could meet, and he was just so talented. And he too was just finding where he needed to be, that awesome, like singing and rapping style that made Catastro so unique. And, I was there for a lot of the beginning, and I was there for a lot of, the ending chapter of with Andy. And I just remember our last show at Red Rocks was one of my favorite shows of my life. And I've seen and been to quite a bit. And it was just such an amazing thing to see where they were going and where they're heading. And yeah, unfortunately, it's the worst thing ever that we don't have Andy anymore. But out of tragedy, depending on how we choose to look at things, can usually come something remarkable and beautiful. And what those guys are currently doing, and the whole team, the team that they have behind them, between like Gonzo, Christian, myself, Chris Vick, Strav's brother Danny, and everyone else who's kind of, there's this new guy Dylan, he goes by Director Tune, I believe, and like we're all just coming together. And like between that and Campfest, being a part of this, being in some of the recording sessions with some of the guest features, like it's just a beautiful thing to see a bunch of people come together for something bigger than themselves, and to honor the life and legacy of Andy and further the careers and legacy of Catastro as a whole. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, because I think that was, I think that's another layer of tragedy with, Andy's untimely death, is that, they were on an upward trajectory and everyone was put to a halt. Everything, not just Andy's life, but I mean the careers of the remaining members as well. And I think there had to have been, a sense of loss with that as well, layered on, the death of their best friend. And I think that this album, it's so much more than an album, right? So much more than an album. Like it's a testament to not only their love for their friend and the love for, the band as a whole, as brothers, but something very deeply, healing and therapeutic for a very, very tragic, traumatic event. And I can't even begin to imagine how hard that was for them. But seeing it come to fruition, seeing these songs being released, seeing them pulling themselves up and doing the hard thing, the extremely crazy hard thing that is hard to even fathom for someone to do in a loss like that. It provides for outsiders looking in. It's such a like testament of hope. It's like, oh my God, like if they can do this through the midst of all of this tragedy, maybe I can do the thing that I don't want to do or that I think is hard, right? Like it's a really beautiful thing to witness, and hard in a lot of ways, because you know how hard it is for them. Like you cannot, like it's palpable, you can feel it, but witnessing it is truly remarkable. And yeah, I love that you've been there to capture it.
Yeah, it's honestly an honor of a lifetime, just getting to grow closer with the boys, and also just Andy's family is so amazing. It's one thing to lose a bandmate and a brother from a non, you know, bloodline related way, but to lose a son, to lose a brother, to lose a cousin, an uncle, it hits different. And just like the boys are strong, Andy's family is so strong and have taken such an amazing outlook on such a tragedy.
Yeah.
And, the combined efforts of both of all those things, it's just, like I said, it's a really good, I don't want to say metaphor, but it's a really good place to look at like what life should be. We're going to go through ups and downs. We're going to have loss. And although we'd like to protect ourselves from that, when it happens, what do we do? How do we respond? And to be a part of a collective of people to respond to that. And then also from the outside watching in, it's such a healthy, beautiful thing to see people come together and love for a common purpose. And it's beautiful.
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that the people close to Andy have dealt with this situation in the healthiest way possible. Like there's been so much positive to come out of it. There's been so much love to come out of it. There's been so much community and so much safety. And yeah, it's really beautiful to see. It's really beautiful to see. Like, I think that everyone around him handled it, with such grace and poise, and just kind of honored him the best way that they could. I can't imagine a better way of kind of memorializing him and honoring his life and his family. This album, I
And
think, again, more than an album, it's been very healing, I think, not just for the band, but for all of his fans too, that feel like that things were left unfinished, right?
And I think the guys definitely have that in mind because obviously they had to heal first. And now they're providing, an outlet and a method and a way for fans who were close to the band or just fans of the band to heal with them.
Yeah.
And this album, we've heard a handful of songs, but the songs yet to come are amazing. The people who have come on the album have done such a good job, and there's so much more to come. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Well, switching gears again, I want to know, if I had no experience as a music photographer, music videographer, if I was green and I came to you and said, "Hey, Sam, I want to take pictures of bands. I want to take videos of bands. I want to work with bands. What do I need to do?" What are the top 3 things or 4 things, top couple of things that you would tell me are the most important things to do?
I would say one, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's find a community to get your reps in. You have to practice constantly your craft. I wouldn't be where I'm at if I haven't taken thousands and thousands of photos and recorded terabytes of video. So I would say finding a community where you can get your reps in is important because you got to, master your craft and the camera.
Small music
Two,
venues, a note, this is where I got my start, is small music venues oftentimes will let you shoot whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want. There's no media passes. You get in with the manager, whoever is in charge, and they'll let you shoot whatever, that's how I did it. That's the easiest way. So yeah, church, small venue. Anyways, keep
and
going.
that was going to be my next thing. And like, I think that was just more of a methodology to get good and get better. And then also you're going to be building somewhat of a limited portfolio. And then the next thing would be to go to a small venue, go to an opening band. Cause I mean, like, you're not going to go, you might be through an outlet. This is another thing, through a publication, but regardless, you have to do something to build a portfolio so
Yeah.
people can trust you. Cause they might only be a handful of media passes allocated. And how are they going to do that to someone who hasn't shown me anything?
Yeah.
So you can go to that small venue with your point and shoot. You don't have to have a break camera. You can do it with your iPhone. You can do it with whatever, but it's about demonstrating your eye, not necessarily the quality. And then while you're there, maybe buy a t-shirt, maybe hang with the band, maybe buy them a beer, do something so you're sticking out from a DM in Instagram. There has to be some sort of personal touch to it, to where most bands, if they're going to bring you on tour, bring you to the big show, to the local show, whatever it is, they're going to be more inclined to pick the person that they want to hang out with,
That they like,
or
exactly.
that they like, that they're not a wild card. That, like, one thing that I see a lot of young photographers, even some established photographers do, like, this isn't a clout convention.
Yeah.
Like, we're not trying to get followers. Like I said, I'm a vessel to the band to try and make them look good, not make me look good. Everything else that comes after, sweet. But my main job is to make the band look good. So be friends with the band, be cool with them. You never know. Like for example, like I met like bands like Denim and Oracle Sound System and Common Kings that are now doing great things, but I met them when they were very young, very green to this as well. And
Yeah.
then I've been capable and able to grow with them. Like I worked with Revolution when they were fresh off playing Isla Vista and deep in DP.
Yeah.
Like same with Iration. Like all these bands, I've been fortunate enough to know them prior and grow with them. So that trust kind of came a little easier for me. But that's not to say someone else can't do that too. So that's the other thing. Be
Well,
cool
that's,
and be,
yeah, no,
okay.
you're totally right. And that's an element, we talked about this in the beginning. That's an element of getting good content is, does the band feel comfortable with you? Do they like you? You know?
And I think too, especially just to tie that up, tie that extra point out as a new thing, all that stuff, if you're doing that, you're gonna grow. And if you just turn things around quickly, that's my third tip is turnaround time is quick. If you go and edit a show and you're like, I'm gonna edit these photos on Friday and turn them in on Saturday,
No.
there's been 3 or 4 concerts since you shot.
Yeah.
Those photos are useless.
Yeah.
Good job, thank you. But if the band doesn't have them that night or the next day, you're really doing this for
They're not
practice. You're not doing it for real.
they're not relevant anymore. I know live shows have a 24 to 48 hour relevance lifespan, you know?
If that, I'd say 12 to 24.
Yeah.
So it's like that's important. So yeah, I'd say that's it. It's just like hone your craft by getting your reps in wherever you can. Community will help you. Reach out and, shoot with local venues, with publications, and with opening bands, and be cool with them and develop relationships. And then turnaround time. Like just be quick with it. And that's what honing your craft comes. All these things serve each other.
Who did you go out on tour with most recently?
Most recently, I went out with Nathan Aurora,
Oh,
and Aurorawave.
okay. I'm so glad you brought this up because I love his new project. I'm a huge fan. I think it's great. I think it's fresh. I think he creates the funniest content. But so take me through a day. What does a day look like? What was your average day like on tour with Aurorawave? Like from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep.
So yeah, like every band, depending who it is, it always looks different. I can be on a bus, I can be on a van, I can be in a sprinter, I can be in a bandwagon. In this case, I was in a bandwagon. This is a little different from a bus tour. Usually with a bus tour, I go to bed, I wake up, at the next venue, very easy. But with the bandwagon, we're driving the van. So the bandwagon. So usually what I'll do is we'll usually wake up at a lovely truck stop. I've gotten very familiar with, Love's, Flying J's, Travel Centers of America. And usually I'll go there, I'll get a very big coffee, and I'm usually editing the video aspect of things in the morning. So usually I'll wake up and then I've already had my selects picked of the clips I want for the concert recap. And then I'll edit that together usually by 10 a.m., depending on time zone and how I'm feeling and what the day looks like. And then we usually from there kind of start making our way to the venue, depending on what kind of venue it is, or if it's in a club, usually the load in time and the opener, the load in time for us is a little later. Whereas if you're with one of the headliners, it's super early in the morning, so I kind of got to be there. Then, especially with Aurorawave, they were so cool. It was such a new experience for all of us creating content that they gave me a lot of creative flexibility to kind of do what I want. And we just kind of started making like little silly starts of videos that like were kind of hook and attention grabbers. But then all of a sudden I was like, man, these guys are actually pretty funny and they got good timing and all that stuff. So I was like, what if we made like a skit? And I started writing these very basic skits that were either ripoffs of movies or something silly that we would come up with. And I have a very basic script and what I wanted to happen, but then we'd collaborate and work together and create something really funny. One of my favorite things is when we thought we left Nate behind and Tanner, the drummer, was going to become the singer, and all that ensued there. It was kind of like an Office ripoff. Also, shout out to Chance and Article Sound System. I kind of stole the thing from them too. I want to give them their flowers as well. But so anyway, Then we would kind of come up with that idea, and by the time we got to the venue, it would be flushed out. We'd film that. We'd literally do it in like 10, 15 minutes. And then I would edit while they're loading in and sound check. They'd go on pretty early, but they'd usually have a VIP right before. So I'd film that and, you know, capture them in that environment. They'd go straight to stage. I'd film that. And then usually I'm culling and figuring out all my photos and selects for video and photo. I'll edit the photos that night. And then usually my eyes and mind are pretty tired by the time I'm done with that. But I have my selects for the next day for video. And then I stop and edit the video in the morning just because I'd rather come at it with fresh eyes
Yeah.
and a fresh mind and heart than try and just power through it. I used to be able to stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning and edit and be done, but I'd rather split it up now.
Yeah. No, I think that's super smart. And yeah, I think I think bringing you on their first kind of official tour was so smart because you are so established and you are so good at what you do. I think having you, not that they like needed it. Obviously, Nate is a great musician and established in his own right, but I think bringing you along, I think that really, like, you guys were very much like a power couple. Like it really worked. It really worked. And I loved seeing all the content from that tour. It was so fun. It was so funny. It was beautifully edited. And I really felt like I was taken along on that tour.
Thank
I've
you.
like no notes. I don't think you could have done it any better.
It was just really fun, like sometimes each band's different, some people want certain things a certain way, some people just let me do my thing, some people only want the show, some people want lifestyle stuff. Here I kind of got to be creative and collaborative. Nathan is just he's the hardest working guy in the scene right now. He's doing so well. He's so proactive and ready to just take whatever life gives him, and he's ready for whatever challenge comes his way. And funny enough, I got that call 2 weeks before because the guy they were bringing on tour is now the drummer of POD. So he had to drop off the tour to go play drums for POD. And then Nathan, I don't think he thought I would want to do it. And he called me up, and he didn't know this, but I'd been rocking out to his singles the whole time. Like, this would be sick. Yeah. And it just worked out. I had the free time, and, I really found a home. And like, Tanner was with Nathan and Iatera previously. And then Mike and Ray are two of the coolest guys I know. They've
Mike is
bounced around.
so nice.
Yeah.
And he is
And they're
a
just
virtuoso. Like he is so
beast,
it's shredder. Like, yes.
just a beast. And to have those, it's cool because we have like this dichotomy of East Coast and West Coast guys kind of coming together. And there's no egos. It's like every crew is different. And obviously it's a little bit more intimate just being a very small crew with these guys. But like I found brothers and family really quick with them because it's just we all have this common desire to push Aurorawave further.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier that they allow me to come along with them.
Yeah, no, I think the content was great. I think it's perfect. I think it's the beginning of something really big for Aurorawave. And, it's always cool seeing someone do something that no one has ever done before and to like crush it, like that's nothing cooler in my opinion. But they did definitely give you a lot of creative freedom, which I think is amazing. And I feel like when you were on tour with Dirty Heads, I feel like they kind of operated the same way. Like you did a lot of like lifestyle kind of backstage content, behind the scenes content with them, and I loved seeing that.
If I'm being honest, I have like a lot of I still have a long ways to go if I'm being honest with you, but like I gotta thank Jared and Duddy for that. Like they were the ones, like this is in no means a slight, but I just remember like getting texts from Duddy late at night being like, yo, dude, this shit's getting boring. And it's like he's like, it's sick, don't get me wrong, but like we need to start switching it up. So I have to thank them. Like it's no slight or there's no like creative like whatever against it. They pushed me to be better,
Yeah. No,
and I got to explore a different way of doing things because I was just so in my bread and butter of doing show recaps the way I
yeah.
do things. And for them to push me to, because they too are extremely funny, extremely talented,
Oh, they're
extremely focused
hilarious.
in what they want to do.
Big person.
So they made it easy. And for, like I was just so honored that they brought me on. Chance is just killing it for them now.
Yeah.
And it's just it was just a really cool thing for them to push me to do different things. And, I wouldn't have had what we did with Aurorawave if not for the Dirty Heads pushing me to be better.
And also, I think that's kind of how they operate as a band too. I think they've always pushed themselves. I think they've always kind of been like, okay, what's working, what's not working? How can we sound new and exciting and fresh and on brand for us and staying true to us? But like, what's the next thing for Dirty Heads? They're always like, what's the next thing? There's some bands, Stick Figure Revolution, they got their sound. You hear a song, even if you never heard it before, you're like, oh, that's a Stick Figure song. That's a Revolution song. And I love that. Dirty Heads is the exact opposite. They have songs that sound like Jimmy Buffett. They have songs that sound like hip hop. They have songs that sound like an acoustic Jack Johnson. They have songs that sound like they're just all over the board and they're constantly changing and evolving. And it's still always Dirty Heads at the core, but they're always pushing themselves and just kind of challenging and exploring their creativity. And I think that's why their live show is constantly, it's so dynamic. It's so interesting. I say this every time I see Dirty Heads, it's the best time I've ever seen Dirty Heads. They just do that. And I truly love that about them. I think they're enigmatic and they're just so hard to put in a box. It's really cool. And I just, seeing all the content you got from them was just so fun.
They're honestly, I love this genre of music, this scene, but there are a few bands that like every chance I get the ability to not only just shoot them, but be in their presence. Dirty Heads are my favorite.
Yeah.
Between top to bottom, management to band to crew. I love everyone as part of that group. And I was very fortunate and lucky to spend so much time with them last summer. And once again, I wouldn't have been on that tour to bring things a little full circle if not for the Catastro boys.
Yeah.
Because I got to spend a lot of the time in the studio with Jared. I've known a few of those guys like Matty for years and years. He went to Musicians Institute as well. So it's like, it's all these things. And it's just kind of like to illustrate the dynamics of how like these relationships form and bond. I got to be in an intimate studio with Catastro doing what we're doing. There's a very big sentimental part attached to it. And then I'm now in the studio with Catastro with Jared. Jared can be comfortable with me in close, intimate quarters. So therefore it can translate to the road. And that's just kind of what to the photographer or videographer out there who is trying to get on a tour, it's very hard. But if you're putting yourself in situations like that, or fortunate enough to be in situations like that, that's how things are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's through that organic networking and being cool with people that are more often than not going to get you the tour rather than just getting an email or you emailing people. It's rare that it comes that way.
I say this all the time, but you got to make people know, like, and trust you.
When I was at MI, there was literally a class for networking, and my teacher said, there's that adage, like it's who you know, but it's not only that, it's like who you know, who knows you, and what they have to say about you.
Yeah.
And it's those three things that can kind of push your career along further. And if you're, if you have that in mind, you work hard and you're cool, sky's the limit.
Amazing. I need to wrap it up because this is about to end.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that. I'm glad we got that one
Yeah.
in. It's just like, because like closing the circle between Dirty Heads and Catastro is important to me because Catastro is a band that, I was doing fine prior to them. I was working with a lot of different bands, but like me being able to be in close quarters and work with Catastro and be with all these people really solidified a lot of the relationships in like my heart, I guess. So like people got to see that, and I'm, I would throw my whole career away to have Andy back, but at the same time,
you put your heart into everything you do, and I love to see it.
Thank you.
I'm also going to call you right now. I'm going to close this and then call you. Okay.
All right. Sweet.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Sam.